Happy Tuesday, everyone. It's Denise from Dobby Books, and it's Tag Tuesday. And today I'm going to be doing a tag called the Nonfiction Book Tag, and I was tagged by Genre Books, and this was a tag originally created by Mike at Bibliophile Reads. And the first question, or the first prompt, is this: what originally made you interested in reading nonfiction? If I think way, way back when I really got into nonfiction, which was my young adult years, it was a lot of the self-help books. In my 20s, I felt scattered, unfocused. I had trouble focusing. Finishing what I started, very much an ADHD thing, but I didn't know it back then. So I was constantly on the lookout for books that would help me uh, with that. They were very slow in coming, but in the meantime, I found lots of other books with lots of other insight. And those nonfiction titles were anything from your standard um, getting organized, motherhood, money handling, and there were also some spiritual titles as well. I loved nonfiction. I still lean to nonfiction, but that was what originally got me into nonfiction. Prompt 2: do you read nonfiction mainly for curiosity, learning, or enjoyment? I'm going to say curiosity because it'll have a title that catches my eye, and then I want to learn more about that particular theme or time period or what have you. And it also leads to enjoyment. So it just it happens in that order, I think. First, the curiosity and the desire to learn about it, and then I'm enjoying myself in the process. What topic could you read endless nonfiction about? History. But a topic within history? I don't know yet. I don't know yet. I enjoy history in general, and it's just so many topics within that, whether it's presidents' lives or a particular event in history. Um, at times, it's what would they call it? Combination of economics and politics. I've noticed that I've leaned toward that in my later years. Yeah, I'll say that. How do you usually discover nonfiction books? Through other nonfiction books, hands down. The book is either directly mentioned in the current book that I'm reading, and I immediately go to, I try not to go to my phone right away, but if it's there, I look up the title, read a little bit more about it, put it on my wish list or in my shopping cart to look at it later or whenever. But usually when a book is mentioned, another nonfiction book is mentioned within another book, I'm circling it and coming back to it later. So that's the number one way I find out about nonfiction books. The next way I find out about them is when I am reading some sort of online resource, whether it's Substack or the New York Review of Books, or an article in the Atlantic. A book will be mentioned there, and that's another way that I find out about another nonfiction title. So I think those are the two main ways I find out. This is prompt 5. Do you follow authors or topics when choosing nonfiction? Topics. Definitely topics. That's the easiest for me. And there are those times where I find a particular author whose prose I particularly enjoy, or the way they will put together a story about an event in history or something like that. And then I'll, again, be on the lookout for more books written by them. Prompt 6. What nonfiction book stuck with you long after reading? I think the most current one that I'm going to pick is the book King by Jonathan Eig, E-I-G. Maybe it's pronounced egg. I don't know. But that's a fairly recent publication on the life of Martin Luther King Jr. And a lot of the new information was gathered by files that were FBI files that were declassified. And it provided more of the things about his personal life that a lot of us may not have been aware of. And it's not all pretty. But what I liked about it is that it gave this icon in our modern history a very human side. Some of the things that he uh, did in his personal life, I was not happy to hear about. Let me be direct. He was having an affair. That bothered me. That he had not been faithful to Coretta. Um, but was he still a man that cared about civil rights for people in general, for African Americans specifically? Was he still someone who did the right thing in spite of the tremendous hostility that he and his followers faced? Yes. So it did not, it, in the end, as I processed this, I considered all those things. What do I think of him now, warts and all? And I still think he was a man who is someone I still respect very much and admire very much. And those things about personal life is not good. Let's just be honest. It was not good what he did, but he will answer for it. He has answered for it. He's not with us any longer, and it just sort of had me considering what other people do I admire that may also have made bad decisions in certain ways, and what am I going to think about them now? One of my professors had brought up, I believe it was Plato. Plato was, I mean, you just say the name and everybody knows who he is. You read his writings and you see this great mind, who contemplated and reflected and turned things around and around in talking about them and taking them apart. Yet he was known for being, let's say, intimate with young boys. Is he still a great philosopher? So those are tough questions. And some of us may look at that personal life and write them off and no longer want to read anything by them anymore. And it could be a celebrity, a movie star, a musician in some way. We could find the same thing, but are we going to look at what they did? And there are certain things that definitely cross the line. But if we go back to their talent, their skill, a contribution they made, is that still valid? So those are the tougher questions, and that's what this biography of Martin Luther King Jr. had me thinking about all over again. So yeah, that's the one that stuck with me. Prompt number 7. What topic have you learned the most about through books? History. History. That's where I found my passion. And I keep leaning towards that. If I had to pick a specific topic within history that I've learned, I think this was an area that I never thought about, was art history, which is not something that I would have chosen on my own. But it's a class that I took when I was in community college, because I structured my classes that if I was studying Western history up until the Renaissance, then I wanted to study art history up until the Renaissance. And I wanted to take English literature that covered everything up until the Renaissance. I wanted to line everything up so that I would get a full context of what was going on in the world and with that person's life, and it would help me understand where they were coming from. And art history was the surprise. And it really helped me to appreciate the the growth and the progression of um, of painting, especially when it came to adding the depth, that two-dimensional thing. It wasn't so one-dimensional anymore. And to see that progress even farther and farther until we got to the Renaissance, and it was just the most spectacular paintings. And in addition to that, the one topic within art that I never would have considered is architecture. That was fantastic. When you think of, oh, let's say columns, the Roman columns, the different kinds of Roman columns and when they started, and the barreled ceilings and the different kinds of barreled ceilings and how they started this way and they eventually became what we see now, these spectacular vaulted ceilings that are phenomenal, and how that progressed through history. That really, that was very impressive for me. And that's what I learned a lot of through those nonfiction books, is the art history and architectural history. Prompt 7. What nonfiction book made you curious about something unexpected? I know I have an answer to this, but it's not coming to me. Science. Well, wait a minute. Is it science when I say science? What nonfiction book made you curious about something unexpected? And that, there was a book, there's the book by Dr. Susan Wise Bauer, and that is The Well-Educated Mind, which is how to give yourself that classical education you never had. And Dr. Bauer includes these different genres within there. So there's literature, and there's poetry, and there's science, and there's all these different categories under history that you can study chronologically through. And that book really helped me to see all these other topics within history that I could incorporate into my own traditional history studies. Prompt 8. Prompt 9. What topic would you recommend everyone explore at least once? Oh, let me take my glasses off and think. I want to explore at least once. I think the most applicable right now, I'm not going to lean on politics so much because I think that's obvious. But I am going to say, I think right now, a good topic for people to look into, if they haven't already done so, is to read a biography of at least one immigrant experience. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an immigrant experience from our modern era, from the era like the 21st century or even the 20th century. Yes, you need to read those. They are important. But try even reading an immigrant experience from the 19th and 18th century. You're going to find similarities and differences. The differences, I think, are more obvious because there are different issues going on during different decades and different centuries. But it's those similarities that I think are really going to stand out. The personal experience of someone or a group of people coming into a country that they don't know the language, they don't know the custom, they really do sort of stand out like a sore thumb. How are they managing that? What is it doing to them? What experiences are they having? What are they doing to overcome these challenges as these new, strange people? What is it that they've done in order to get to this new country? What drove them to leave their country? I think those similarities are going to be more unifying in the end and will give us, in the present, a much more realistic perspective on what it is to be an immigrant. And I think it's going to help cut through all that nonsense that we're hearing on TV that puts all immigrants in one box under one label, which is not true. I think it's a really imperative right now, since this seems to be a hot topic of those who are, let's say, hostile to immigrants, to strangers. It's important for us to not only listen to one narrative, but why don't we hear the story from those people themselves, not someone else telling us about them. That's what I think is really important right now. Prompt number 10. What nonfiction book would you recommend to curious readers? Oh my gosh. That's like the impossible question. What nonfiction book would I recommend? I think that a book that would apply to what's happening right now in the United States, a good book to read, is this one that I got a while back entitled Socialism 101 by Kathleen Sears, a crash course in socialist political theory. And this explains the history of socialist thought. It goes, oh gosh, it covers the different kinds of socialism, how that thought process has progressed, how it's been applied in different countries throughout Europe. It does talk about Russia. It talks about Marx. It specifically talks about democratic socialism, which is going to be it's something on everybody's mind right now. It talks about the New Deal during the Depression. So it covers a myriad of topics and helps us to see better what socialism is. And I think it's trying to present what, in overly simplistic terms, good socialism, bad socialism, so you understand the difference between those. So I would say, okay, here's something that if you want to educate yourself a little bit better on what socialism actually is without freaking out at the word, read this, then decide from that point. So right off the bat, this would be one book for now. All right, and the final prompt. What nonfiction book would you give someone who says they don't like nonfiction? All right, I chose several, and they're just a drop in the bucket on the ones that I have, because I have a lot of nonfiction books. So if I had to consider different people, different interests, here's one for a person whom I think might be interested in feminist history or what was going on during the 1960s, for example. Here's a classic, The Feminine Mystique by Betty Friedan. Someone may find this fascinating. They never knew about this, or they heard her name, but they never found out the details. For someone who enjoys art, I think they might like this, The Letters of Vincent van Gogh. It's just a collection of letters between Vincent and his brother, and I believe other people. It spans his artistic career, sheds light on every facet of the life and work of this complex and tortured man. I want to see who he wrote to. I don't know. So I know many are to his brother, but I believe there are letters written to other individuals. Now, this is something that I think would be interesting for someone. You're getting history, you're getting nonfiction without really realizing that that's happening. And another one, if someone loves pictures, wants an easier go of it, here's one by Francisco Jimenez, The Circuit. This is a graphic novel about a man who is now a professor emeritus at Santa Clara College up north. He was the son of immigrants, and they came here to the United States in the mid-1940s and worked as migrant farm workers. And it was a very tough life. There were no rights. There was no union fighting for them at all. They were struggling. And this, through graphic illustrations, covers an actual life of a family as migrant farm workers. So there's an easy introduction to nonfiction. Another one along the same lines of a graphic novel is entitled The Myth Makers by John Hendricks, The Remarkable Fellowship of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. Another graphic novel. Talks about their friendship and their lives. And they were both, I believe, in World War I. It covers that. So this is a great way of reading nonfiction without it feeling so much like nonfiction. And another final one I got was this one, Number One Walking. Number One is Walking, My Life in the Movies and Other Diversions by Steve Martin. And he talks about his experiences on the various movies he made, such as The Father of the Bride, Roxanne, The Jerk, Three Amigos, and others. And there are some lovely little illustrations. So it's nonfiction and it's Steve Martin. So there. So those are the suggestions I would have, just right off the top of my head, some general ideas. And I believe that is it. I will find individuals that I will list. I will tag for this one. And whether or not I do or you don't find your name on there, if this intrigues you, consider yourself tagged. I'd love to hear what you have to say. All right, everybody, that is it. Thanks for hanging out with me. Please enjoy the rest of your week and be safe. I love you all. Take care.